Spiderhead is a modern prison that looks more like a hotel. In this place, prisoners have a more relaxed routine, can take walks, talk with others, and even earn rewards to shorten their sentences. However, there's a catch. Spiderhead conducts medical tests, and not all of them are safe. It's important to note that all experiments are voluntary, and inmates can choose not to participate and go back to a regular prison cell. Ray, one of the inmates, sits in a chair facing a mirrored window, and Steve starts an experiment by giving Ray an injection. A minute later, they give Ray a drug and tell him some jokes, which make him laugh a lot, even when they switch to serious topics. Every morning in Spiderhead is pretty much the same. Inmates are woken up by a loudspeaker and told if they're selected for experiments. Steve asks Jeff if he's willing to try a new drug called N40, which nobody has tried before. Jeff agrees to take part in the experiment. They also give him another drug to make him talk in great detail. After returning to Spiderhead, Jeff meets Lizzie and talks about his walk today. Unfortunately, due to the side effects of the vocabulary-enhancing drug, Jeff can hardly say anything. All he can remember is that everything around him during the experiment, like flowers or factory pipes, made him feel a lot of love and admiration. In the evening, Jeff thinks about how he ended up in prison. He and his friend went for a joyride at a party, and drunk Jeff drove the car. The next day, the N40 experiments, now called Cupid, continue, but this time, Jeff isn't alone. Heather, a bold girl who changes her mind about her partner within seconds of taking the drug, is invited to join him. They talk for just a few seconds before they can't resist and become intimate. They don't mind being watched or filmed because the drug makes them ignore their inhibitions. The process ends with the young people confessing their love for each other. Steve is happy about this and tells his partner, Mark, to keep a close eye on the subjects to see how they act when the effects of the drug wear off. The two people involved feel uncomfortable about what happened and try to keep it a secret. Jeff continues to spend time with Lizzie during his free time without telling her about the experiments. He also avoids Heather. The next day, they give Jeff the same love drug, but this time in a higher amount. And instead of Heather, there's an older woman in the room. Sober. Jeff doesn't like her, but as soon as the drug kicks in, he starts to feel affection for her. After this, Jeff asks Mark to change his work area because he doesn't want to interact with his girlfriend Lizzie anymore. Steve brings Jeff into the lab, but this time he's on the other side of the glass. He shows Jeff that both of his previous partners are in the room, and he asks Jeff to choose which girl should be given a substance that causes fear and pain. Jeff can't make a choice because he doesn't want to hurt either of the girls, so they cancel the experiment. On another Friday walk, Jeff tries to call his girlfriend, who was with him during the car accident, but he only gets her voicemail again. In the evening, he spends time with Lizzie and plans a little Christmas surprise for her. But when he's back in the lab, he sees Rogan in front of him, a big inmate with tattoos. Jeff remembers what happened with the girls and refuses to take part in the experiment. Nothing happens, and they are released after a few minutes of silence. Jeff figures out that he and Rogan were both partners with one of the female inmates, and she was supposed to choose who would get the medication. He rushes to Steve's office and finds Heather there. The doctor doesn't argue with Jeff. Instead, he shows him a diagram of who is meant to get close to whom under the influence of the drug. Steve reminds Jeff that being in Spiderhead is a privilege, and if he's not happy, he can go back to a regular prison with no hope of early release. Understanding the suggestion, the next time, Jeff calmly sits in the same room as Rogan without any fuss. Steve gives Mark a break for the weekend and tells him to enjoy his time on the mainland. Steve himself decides to try the Cupid drug to experience the happiness he had only seen in his subjects before. The experiments continue, and Steve tells Jeff that they need to give the girls a different kind of drug, as a certain group wants the experiment to be pure. Jeff tries to explain that he doesn't want anyone to go through the effects of this drug, no matter how he feels about the girls. However, Steve is firm and reminds Jeff of all the privileges he has by cooperating with them. Not wanting to go back to a regular prison, Jeff agrees to give the different drug to Heather. Heather starts to cry and panic, but the staff calmly records the data while listening to Jeff's comments, which Don't show any romantic feelings. The experiment's goal is met, and Steve plans to end it, but there's a mistake, and Heather loses control. She gets a sharp object and frees herself from the effects of the drug. While Steve and Mark deal with Heather, Jeff sees the supervisor's lost keys and finds a notebook with records of upcoming experiments and a lottery ticket with the same numbers as the drug names. Noticing that Steve is no longer behind the glass, Jeff manages to lock the safe and toss the keys back, so the doctor doesn't realize his secret is out. Steve warns Mark that if anyone finds out about what happened to Heather and he has to answer for it, he will implicate everyone who participated in the experiment. Lizzie takes part in the experiments for the first time, and the first thing they give her is the different drug. After experiencing it, she meets with Jeff privately and shares her feelings. Lizzie confesses that she's not sure if Spiderhead is better than a regular prison with strict rules. In response, Jeff opens up to his girlfriend and confesses that on the night of the accident, his beloved girlfriend was also in the car and didn't survive the ride. That's why he willingly undergoes the trials on himself, hoping to somehow make amends for his guilt. Their honest conversation leads to spending the night together. Steve quickly realizes the close bond between his inmates and decides to use this connection for his own purposes. When Jeff comes for the next experiment, he's told he has to either give Lizzie a strong drug called Dark Flux or leave Spiderhead. Jeff says no, but the doctor lets him wait until the morning to decide. When he meets the doctor again, he has Lizzie's personal file. It turns out Lizzie's crime is so terrifying to her that no amount of Dark Flux can make it worse. Steve is pleased as Jeff sets the dosage to the maximum, but it becomes clear that Jeff plans to test the drug on the doctor, not Lizzie. Mark, realizing he's caught in Steve's scheme with the inmates, gives Jeff the remote control. Jeff gets the necessary information from Steve and convinces him to open the main exit so he and Lizzie can leave the prison. But the doctor takes the remote and gives Lizzie a high dose of Dark Flux, causing her a lot of pain. Then he breaks his phone to prevent anyone from undoing his command. The couple manages to break free from the drug's effects and run out of the lab. Steve announces over the loudspeaker that because of them, everyone else will be sent back to regular prisons. Jeff and Lizzie become the targets of a manhunt. Many tough inmates, including the big tattooed Rogan, plan to deal with the couple who took away their privileges. Steve tries to escape with the drugs because Mark has called the police boats to approach Spiderhead. Steve leaves the base and takes off in a small plane before the police arrive. But since his remote control is broken, the drugs are injected into his body in large amounts. Another dose of Cupid makes him feel admiration, and he steers the plane toward a small, rocky island, thinking it's a paradise. Mark on the police boat watches as his former boss circles above the sea and then crashes into the rocks. Jeff and Lizzie steal a boat and manage to sail away before the police arrive. Happy and free, the young couple only regrets that Steve didn't create a substance for self-forgiveness. Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.